with Sue Bird coming in, at least this is someone that has been positive on Caitlyn at times. And I think the issue with Sue Bird, though, is she has her hand kind of in so many things. And with her podcast, where she tries to advocate for the players, but she's also an owner in the league. And now she's got the Team USA thing, and she's got all these connections and relationships she has to maintain. But at the end of the day, if it comes down to someone that went to UConn and someone that did not go to UConn, the UConn Mafia is going to stick together until proven otherwise.
Let's call this what it is. Team USA just created one of the most unnecessary, self-inflicted disasters women's basketball has ever seen. And honestly, it's impossible to look away from. The chaos. Here's the bombshell. Caitlin Clark, the most magnetic, influential superstar in the sport right now, has reportedly drawn a hard line. She's made it clear that if they try to take her number away, she's gone. No debate, no negotiation, she'll walk. Meanwhile, behind closed doors, Sue Bird, yes, the Sue Bird is scrambling to contain the fallout from this mess. But let's be real here, the damage might already be beyond repair. This whole situation is spiraling faster than anyone can control, and the consequences could reshape women's basketball for years. So I've got to know, drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you bail on Team USA over a jersey number? Or do you think Caitlyn is pushing this too far? I'm genuinely curious how people see this, because from everything coming out, it looks like Team USA decided to force Caitlin Clark to ditch her signature number 22, the same number she's worn since she was a little kid, learning to dribble. The number fans instantly associate with her, the number that's become a literal cornerstone of her brand. And somehow, they're surprised she didn't take that well. Instead of celebrating the player who brought millions of new eyes to women's basketball, they essentially told her she couldn't be, well, her. So when she fired back with a blunt, "If I can't wear my number, I'm not coming," nobody should have been shocked. According to multiple reliable reports from the December training camp, USA Basketball informed her outright that 22 was off limits. And that was it, the line was crossed. Now Sue Bird, Team USA's managing director, is reportedly losing sleep trying to understand how things unraveled this catastrophically. And honestly, she should be worried. This isn't some tiny clerical mix-up. This is a full-scale crisis that makes the entire operation look either same-dare, totally disconnected from reality, or flat-out disrespectful toward the face of the sport. And neither of those options is a good look for a program that's supposed to be the gold standard of women's basketball, literally and figuratively.
We haven't even made it to training camp yet. We have not even made it to the December 12th Women's USA Basketball training camp yet, and they are already disrespectful.
Here's the part of the story that makes this whole situation almost comically ridiculous. Number 22, Caitlin Clark's number, wasn't even spoken for. No one at camp had it. It wasn't assigned. It wasn't promised. It wasn't tied to any veteran or tradition. It was literally sitting there, untouched, wide open, waiting for the one player on earth who has made it globally iconic. Just let that sink in. There was no conflict to solve, no reason to shuffle numbers around, no need to make room for anyone else. Team USA had every possible opportunity to keep things simple, and instead, they chose to create a problem from nothing. And that decision right there is what turned a tiny, avoidable detail into something that feels intentional, like a quiet attempt to check Caitlyn's influence or remind her who's in charge. And fans, media, the general public, they're not buying it, they're furious. And the timing could not be worse. This entire mess blew up right before Team USA's crucial to them North Carolina training camp starting December 12th, a camp that was supposed to be a massive celebration of the future of women's basketball. The event was set to feature rising stars like Paige Buchers and Juju Watkins. It was meant to showcase the next generation of American dominance. Instead, this one bizarre, unnecessary decision hijacked the spotlight and overshadowed everything. A camp created to celebrate the sport's brightest young stars suddenly became the stage for one of the weirdest controversies women's basketball has seen in years. And all of it because someone somewhere up the chain decided that the most famous player in the sport didn't deserve to wear the number that's been tied to her identity since childhood. Let's be crystal clear here, because this is the heart of the entire issue. Caitlin Clark's number, 22, is the most recognizable number in women's sports right now. No debate, no alternate angle. Everyone knows that number belongs to her from the new fans she brought into the sport to, the lifers who've watched for decades. That number represents her absurd logo range shooting. It represents her elite court vision that embarrasses defenders on a nightly basis. It represents her relentless competitive drive. To millions, 22 isn't just a jersey number. It's Caitlin Clark's signature, her identity woven into the fabric of the game itself. For Caitlin Clark, number 22 isn't just a jersey, it's a badge of excellence, a symbol of everything she's built, and a cornerstone of her global brand. And somehow, Team USA looked at all of that and decided she should wear number 17. A number that means absolutely nothing to her. No story, no memories, no connection to her. Rise. The only thing special about 17 inches this situation is that it isn't 22, which feels like the entire point. Because let's be honest, this was never a logistical move. This was a message, a reminder from the top that no matter how massive Caitlin Clark becomes, the organization still calls the shots. And Caitlin instantly fired back with a message of her own. If that's how it is, then you can run the show without me. What makes this even worse is the bigger context surrounding it. This isn't happening in isolation. Everyone remembers the stunning moment when Caitlin was left off the Olympic roster. A jaw-dropping snub, considering she's the biggest star in the sport and the single strongest ratings engine women's basketball has ever seen. That alone raised eyebrows about whether Team USA truly understood the moment they were living in. But now, add the number fiasco on top of that, and suddenly the pattern looks eerily intentional. Almost like an effort to shrink her influence rather than embrace it. Fans everywhere are little 7 everywhere, connecting the dots. First, she's excluded from the Olympics despite drawing global attention to the sport. Now, she's being pushed to give up the most iconic part of her brand for no rational reason whatsoever. It's not hard to see why people think Team USA may be uncomfortable with just how massive, influential, and culturally dominant Caitlin Clark has become. She's outgrown the league, she's outgrown the national program. And when power shifts this dramatically, big institutions don't always adjust gracefully. Now let's talk about Sue Bird, because she's been thrown into an impossible situation. As the managing director, she selected this roster and is responsible for guiding the program's future. Her job is supposed to be about strategy, development, and keeping Team USA on top of the world. Instead, she's stuck trying to repair a PR disaster her own organization created from scratch. Insiders say Sue has been swinging between frustration and outright panic, scrambling for a way to fix the situation without causing even more chaos. It's a mess, and she's trapped right in the middle. Here's the harsh thing. Undeniable truth that Sue Bird and Team USA are finally realizing. Caitlin Clark holds all the leverage, every single ounce of it. She doesn't need Team USA to define her career or secure her legacy. She already owns both. She broke records at Iowa that may stand forever. She has transformed WNBA viewership and made the league a cultural conversation overnight. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the national team, but the national team absolutely needs her. Caitlin Clark has brought an explosion of spotlight, sponsorships, and mainstream attention to women's basketball on a scale no one before her has ever achieved. So you have to ask, what does she actually gain by sacrificing her own brand identity for an organization that keeps showing her she isn't valued the way she should be? Team USA, on the other hand, has everything to lose if she walks. They lose their biggest attraction. They lose the cultural weight she carries. They lose the millions of fans who tuned in specifically because of her. They lose the media frenzy, the marketing boom, and the entire narrative of a new golden era in American women's basketball. If Caitlin steps away, it's a catastrophe for them, and Sue Bird knows it. That's why she's Bird, scrambling. And then the evidence dropped. The official training camp roster was released, and there it was in plain print. Caitlin Clark, no. 17. Not rumored, not speculated, confirmed. And here's the part that makes everyone's jaw drop. When you scan the full roster, you can clearly see that no one, not a single player, is wearing, no, 22. It's wide open, completely, unused. They could have handed her the number without any drama, and none of this would have happened. But they didn't. They chose conflict. They chose controversy. They chose to light this fire themselves, and now they're choking on the smoke. But it goes deeper than one roster sheet or one decision. This situation highlights a much larger issue inside women's sports, an issue athletes have been shouting about for decades: Wnba. Players have consistently said they're undervalued, underpaid, and underappreciated, even as they're the ones driving the sport's growth. So when the most influential player of her generation is treated like her identity is disposable, that hits a nerve. It reinforces the same disrespect female athletes have been battling forever. This controversy is also directly connected to the fierce CBA negotiations going on right now, and the very real possibility of a league-wide lockout. Players are tired of being treated as if they should feel grateful for whatever crumbs they get. That's why this jersey debate resonates so deeply. It's never just been about a number, it's about what that number symbolizes: respect, recognition, and the acknowledgement that Caitlin Clark has earned the right to stand firm. When she says, "This is non-negotiable," she's not acting entitled, she's standing up for herself. In a system that has repeatedly tried to shrink, silence, or control women athletes at every turn, and a lot of people admire her for that. Now, to be fair, some argue that players like Aja Wilson and Cameron Brink also wear Wnba 22, and that's true. But historically, this has never been a crisis requiring executive intervention. Players have always figured it out privately and respectfully. There have been tons of all-star games where multiple players shared the same number. And guess what? Nobody melted down, nobody issued mandates. They handled it like professionals. No drama, no power plays. If both Aja and Caitlin ended up at the same event wearing 22, the mature solution would have been simple: let them talk it out, not drag USA basketball leadership into it and create a mess that never needed to exist. USA basketball didn't just mishandle this, they invented a crisis that didn't exist, slapped together a solution nobody asked for, and ended up disrespecting the most important athlete in trade, the sport. The way this situation unfolded shows a stunning lack of awareness about Caitlin Clark's influence and the enormous leverage she now holds. Organizations get used to operating under old power structures. They assume things will always function the way they did before, that they're the ones offering the opportunity, and athletes should simply be grateful to participate. That's exactly how Team USA is approaching Caitlin, like they're doing her a favor by having her on the roster. But that mindset hasn't just shifted, it's flipped upside down. The truth is simple: Caitlin Clark is the one elevating them, not the other way around. Her presence brings attention, relevance, sponsorships, and millions of new fans. At this stage of her career, the program needs her far more than she needs the program. And Sue Bird's urgency makes perfect sense. She didn't single-handedly make this call. This clearly came from multiple levels of outdated thinking, maybe old rules, maybe old attitudes about hierarchy. But Sue is the face of leadership. She's the one who has to stand in front of cameras and defend a decision that directly contradicts the message she now has to send. We respect Caitlin Clark, except the decision itself screams the opposite. It's a lose-lose position for her. Here's the reality: Caitlin Clark has zero obligation to compromise. None. She's accomplished everything she set out to do. She's already reshaped women's basketball, broken records, and become a global figure. Why would she bend for a system treating her like an accessory instead of a generational superstar? If USA basketball wants her back, the burden is entirely on them, and fixing this requires more than quietly swapping a number on a spreadsheet. It requires ownership, a public acknowledgement that they blew it, and tangible proof, not vague statements that they understand her value and are willing to treat her accordingly. This whole controversy has opened a much bigger conversation about athlete power in modern sports. Today's stars, especially those with massive brands and platforms, no longer have to accept disrespect just because an organization has historically held the authority. If Caitlin walks away from Team USA, it would send a seismic message across every sport. You don't have to tolerate being undervalued, even from institutions that believe they're ace, untouchable, And that's why the next move is unpredictable and massive. Sue Bird could scramble to reverse the decision, give Caitlyn her number back, and try to rebuild. Trust, with guarantees this won't happen again. Or Caitlyn could stand firm, skip camp entirely, and make it clear that Team USA needs to rethink how it treats its stars, especially the one athlete who has changed the sport's trajectory more than anyone in decades. Either way, the damage is already done. Team USA now looks either alarmingly incompetent or openly disrespectful. Neither version inspires confidence in their leadership, and the comparisons make the situation even more embarrassing. No one would have told Wayne Gretzky to ditch number 99. No executive would have dared to take no 23 away from Michael Jordan. Those numbers weren't just digits, they were identity, legacy, and brand. Caitlin Clark is in that exact same category. 22 is her signature. Asking her to abandon it is asking her to shed a core part of who she is as an athlete. And she's made it clear that will not happen. So here we are, Team USA has cooked up a crisis entirely on their own. And now Sue Bird is left trying to mop up a mess that should never have existed. Caitlin Clark holds every ounce of leverage, and she knows it. This story is far from finished. And I want to hear from you. Betterer Stan Dash. What should Caitlin Clark's next move be?